All frucked up, day 31, doing my stream of consciousness, thoughts for the day video. And I wonder if our ancestors had already hit upon the truth where, a lot of dietary fat in the presence of substantial amounts of carbohydrate drove de novo lipogenesis like nothing else. So, they wouldn't have had those fancy terms. Pre-1954, they wouldn't have even known about insulin. But I'm sure somewhere along the lines that we noticed dietary fat and carbohydrates together in, one meal would have driven weight gain. And I find it fascinating because, we didn't always live in times of abundance. And our ancestors would have surely faced times of scarcity. So, would it be ridiculous to think that we learned how to combine foods for maximum calorie? Let me say it a different way because I'm not trying to get hung up on calories. Would it be ridiculous to think that our ancestors combined certain foods and came up with certain recipes in order to drive the most... I know what I'm trying to say. That we combined foods for maximum weight gain, whether that was, muscle protein synthesis, whether that was, driving the accumulation of adipose tissue, so we've got, fat to run on through the winter or what have you. But, when there's not an abundance of food, would it be ridiculous to think that our ancestors started preparing meals in such a way as to pack on the most weight possible, whether that was muscle, whether that was fat? And then these recipes and these food combinations just got handed down through the generations. And, as we became better at producing crops, as we became better at growing gardens, as we became more skilled in either hunting or, producing meat, as the meat packing industry grew, our portion sizes ramped up, our plates got bigger, our calorie intake went up. And again, I'm not trying to get hung up on calories. I'm simply using that as a measure of food quantity. So our quantities ramp up, and we've got these wonderful recipes that taste great, that grandma made or mom made. And it's like there's this large quantity of dietary fat, and there's this large quantity of carbohydrate, and we're combining it. You think about it, like, okay, pasta. That starchy pasta by itself is not the villain, but what do? We cover it with cream sauces, and we cover it with, butter and all kinds of things like that. A plain baked potato, it's kind of innocuous, right? It's a starch. It's just glucose, ultimately, by itself. And we cover it with sour cream, butter. We load it up with bacon and cheese. And it's like, you look almost across the board, any westernized diet, we've got these food combinations that are dietary fat and carbohydrate. Dietary fat and carbohydrate, always combined. And, the food companies are certainly going to, give us more of what we're used to, what we crave, what we associate with, positive memories growing up. But yeah, these food combinations, they're, to quote the term that I first heard from Dr. Ted Naiman, it's obesogenic. It's going to drive obesity. It's going to drive de novo lipogenesis, the making of new fat. But I just wonder if these recipes, these food combinations, were a function of, times that were more scarce, times of scarcity when we didn't have all the availability of food that we have these days. And, instead of vilifying macronutrients, although I definitely have spent my time vilifying fat, and now, I'm trying to take a new direction and not be so dogmatic with things. I've vilified carbs in the past, but instead take a look at it and consider for a moment that these traditional dishes, they actually probably had a strategy behind them once upon a time. Yeah, maybe not a useful video, but I recorded it and here it is. So yeah, day 31's a wrap, up 0.4 of a pound on the evening, or I should say on the day. This evening, I went to an event and yeah, I had a couple of ounces, actually 3 ounces, 2 1.5 ounce pours of Maker's Mark. So yeah, 3 ounces of bourbon, 3 Coca-Cola Classics, so there'd be some caffeine there. And again, it's a dark cola, probably not the best choice. Low-fat cottage cheese, green beans. I don't know how they were prepared. I didn't see any bacon in there. They just appeared to be plain green beans. They certainly tasted fantastic, and yeah, I don't think that was just plain green beans, but I don't know how they were prepared. I didn't ask. And then I had ham and potatoes, and I went back for more low-fat cottage cheese, more ham, and more potatoes. I kept the quantities within reason. I didn't walk out of there bloated. I mean, I've been more bloated from a half a gallon of orange juice. I've been more bloated from many other sugar diet friendly, sugar diet approved juices than I was from this meal. But I understand it's a different macronutrient profile. The mixed macro meal that I enjoyed this evening, it was quite fantastic. The quantities were not crazy, but it's not just sucrose, right? So tomorrow morning's video, when I weigh in, I'll have to give myself a big thumbs down. But hey, I was at an event, food was provided, it was fantastic, and I didn't go crazy. So there you have it. That moderation that we're always told to follow. Who knew I could pull it off? Any case, I hope you had a great evening, and I'll check in the morning and see what kind of damage I did. Scale-wise, right? Anyway, that's it for me. See ya.